I'm not going to talk about basketball. Nothing's happened with our team in the last 6 hours. We're going to start the same way tonight. Any basketball questions don't matter. Since we left shoot-around, 14 children were killed 400 miles from here, and a teacher. And in the last 10 days, we've had elderly black people killed in a supermarket in Buffalo. We've had Asian churchgoers killed in Southern California, and now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. And there's a reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power. So I ask you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like. It's what we do every week. So I'm fed up. I've had enough. We're going to play the game tonight, but I want every person here, every person listening to this, to think about your own child or grandchild or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today? We can't get numb to this. We can't sit here and just read about it and go, well, let's have a moment of silence. Yeah, go Dubs, you know. Come on, Mavs, let's go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go play a basketball game. And 50 senators in Washington are going to hold us hostage. Do you realize that 90% of Americans, regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check? 90% of us, we are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
The bill that he's talking about is H.R. 8. It passed the House February 27, 2019. And when it got to the Senate, it stalled. And the bill is very simplistic. It only prohibits a firearm transfer between private parties unless a licensed gun dealer, manufacturer, or importer first take possession of the firearm to conduct a background check. So this bill is designed to make society a harder target by adding some extra steps to get a weapon so it's not so easy. It does not mean that the Democrats are going to take away the weapons. So please don't feed into the rhetoric where the Republicans are saying, oh my gosh, the Democrats are going to take away your weapons, and then vice versa, where the Democrats are saying, oh my gosh, the Republicans want guns in the hands of the babies, right? So if you go on Fox News and you go on CNN, you look at the disparity between both coverages. It's about the shootings, but then it's also about Republican versus Democrat. And this is what's hurting us, because we can't pass laws because there's such a divide of our congressmen and women who are representing us. They have this power, they're holding on to it, and now it's us versus them, and we cannot get anything done. So yes, I agree with what Mr. Kerr said, but there's also some extra things that we need to do right now in order to help curb this stuff from happening, especially in our schools. So the first one is we have to make our schools a harder target. So by making our schools a harder target, it's going to come with money. And that's something that we're never going to agree upon because, again, we have the Republicans versus the Democrats. We have government involvement versus we don't want government involvement. So we have to come to a happy medium. So take a look at this district. If you take away the chief of police and take away the lieutenant, there are 4 police officers that are in charge of this entire district. That's thousands of kids. So you have to ask yourself, how many other schools, districts out there do not have adequate funding to provide police officers or resource officers to provide security and protection for our children? They're coming to these schools to learn, and now they cannot learn because they're always afraid of being shot and killed. So let's take a quick look at Robb Elementary. You can see from Google Maps that it is an open campus, meaning that the doors face out. So the students that go to the gym and the cafeteria, they have to leave their classrooms, go outside to the other facilities. Then as you continue to look at these pictures, look to see how the doors are facing out and that there are big glass panels to the right-hand side of the doorways. So what this means is that if I am a bad person, I'm coming to this school to cause harm, what I'll do is that I'll look at the door, it's locked, but then to the right, it's glass window, and I just shoot out or bust out the glass and make entry into the school. We have case study after case study after case study. We're supposed to take these tragic incidents, and then we, as law enforcement and society, need to educate ourselves, protect society, give advice. Just look into 10 years ago, Sandy Hook happened. Look at the crime scene photos that were taken in the front of the school. Again, the offender comes up to the door, it's locked, so what does he do? He turns his head to the right and then shoots out the glass, makes entry in the school, and then kills kids. This has to stop. My daughter is 5 years old and she goes to an elementary school. It was just built. It is brand spanking new. And just take a look at the front door. It is filled with glass panels that you can easily shoot out. Once the doors are locked, which it has cipher locks and everything is good, there's a little peephole where you come up to the door, you ring the bell and they say, "Who are you?" and they question you. But then that's it. Then if you pass their quiz, then you get in. However, if I come up with a gun and they say, "Go away," I won't even ask, right? I'll just shoot out the glass. So the point is that we have to make our entries into schools a heck of a lot harder than what they are right now. The first step is to do reinforcement on the doors, and then also I want you to think hard about bullet-resistant glazing on the glass. Meaning if I shoot the glass 50 times, it doesn't shatter and break. What it does is spider webs, and take a look at the picture. No, I'm not a sponsor for this company, but just take a look at what the product that they sell, right? And so if we had this on all of the major doorways and everything on the bottom floor, how hard would it be to get into these schools? It would make it extra hard. And then if you couple that with law enforcement officers or SROs inside of the schools, it just, again, makes it a harder target. So you have to think to yourself, would the offender come to this school specifically if he or she knows that A, they can't shoot out the glass, they cannot make entry, and 2, there are actually SROs inside, highly trained to deal with an active shooter? I think they will eventually go away and try something else. And unfortunately, we have to tackle those other places one at a time. So first, we need to curb the elementary schools from being the number one target of these active shooters. So the second and most important thing is that we need to do as a society is take a really hard look and overhaul the system and how we deal with our children and the mental health problems that they have. So for example, try not to focus in on the age or the location. But let's say a 13-year-old goes to school and he or she has suicidal ideations. It gets reported to the teacher reports it to the nurse, and the nurse then gets the child over to the emergency room. And then a clinical psychologist comes down, and then he or she evaluates the juvenile, and whether they continue to have suicidal ideations. Most often they don't, or they are just kidding and they play it off because they're embarrassed, and then that child gets released back to their parents, if there are parents, and then it's up to the parents to deal with it. So looking back at the 13-year-old, what he or she did was a cry for help. They come in many different forms, whether it's suicidal ideations or acting out, committing crimes, and so forth and so forth. So what we have to look at is that when we get access to them and when they cry for help, we have to realize what it is. And then yes, if you are working in the ER and somebody has suicidal ideations, you're supposed to follow checklist. Most hospitals have one. If you don't, there are checklists on the National Institute of Mental Health. So most ERs that I have worked through have something very, very similar to this, if this not this. And then as you can see, it tells you step 1 through 5, praise the patient, assess the patient, ask certain questions, ask them if they have a suicide plan. And then you ask about past behavior. Then you look at symptoms that they're displaying, if any. And then you look at the social support and stressors. Then you interview the patient with the parents together if they're available. Then it's up to that specific person to then determine disposition. And maybe that could also be a disconnect. That is that person, where are the checks and balances on that person making that decision? And then who does he or she report to say, hey, I saw this 13-year-old. There's reports that he or she wanted to commit suicide. When I saw him or her, I didn't see anything. So who are the checks and balances over that type of interaction? And then, as you can see, the under the determined disposition is that that person can maybe no longer display any types of suicidal ideations, and then they are sent home with mental health referrals. Then it's back upon the parent or the guardians to then follow through with this child, or no further intervention is necessary at this time. And I think that is a large part of the problem, is that we are focused in on the suicide aspect, but what about the disassociation aspect of our society? So we desperately need to look at this severe problem that we have with disassociation, or even traits of disassociation. Our juveniles are suffering because they believe they don't belong to society per se. It slowly builds and calculates whether they're, and I also show you that they may be being bullied at school. And there's a whole bunch of things that can be drawn out from a new assessment that revolves around disassociation. We got great suicidal ideation assessments, but now we need fantastic disassociation assessments, meaning that if they make statements where I'm not loved, or my family hates me, or my friends hate me, my school hates me, society hates me, those types of questions, it could really help mental health professionals really get to the bottom of how this juvenile or adult is feeling, and then slowly bring them back where they are loved, they are unique, they are special to society. So we need to do 3 things. 1, make access to guns a little bit harder. I'm not saying take away guns from everybody. That's ridiculous. Make it a little bit harder to get a gun. 2, make our schools a harder target. And then 3, I really want an overhaul on how we view mental health in this country, that it's not bad, it's not taboo, it is wonderful. We must take care of each other. We are a society of one. We must love each other, respect each other, and then help each other. By outcasting those who are different from us is ridiculous, and that needs to stop. Are you tired of people being murdered by these people that have mental health problems? I am, Steve Kerr is, and so should you. So let's go.